Professor Trevor Gibbs is a member of the AMEE Exec, and Trevor, I think it's your particular remit to be looking after the AMEE Guides. Can you tell us how that's been going?
Yeah, thanks, John. One of the major problems we've had with medical education is that people have been forced into the job without really knowing what they're supposed to be doing. The aim of the AMEE Guides was to give them a very practical, quick, but evidence-based idea of what their job entails. So if somebody was asked to construct problem-based learning in their curriculum, they could quickly go to an AMEE Guide, understand about learning, problem-based learning, the modern methods, and have a practical input to that. We've been doing that for the last 4 years now, and so far we have 103 guides covering all different aspects of educational management, curriculum planning, assessment, and also the research and the theories that's been applied recently. They're very successful and very practical.
So this really is a key resource, isn't it, for anyone coming into medical education? Can they have to buy these guides, Trevor, or can they get them some other way?
If you're an AMEE member, then the guides will come with your medical teacher. If you're not an AMEE member, then you do have to buy them as a PDF download. But also at the same time we produce hard copies of the guides for sale at the conferences, so that these can be put on people's shelves as part of the libraries. They contain extra material, they contain extra resources within that guide. So it's probably better to buy, if I was encouraging people, I'd encourage them to buy the full guide.
Right, that would be a great thing to have. I see they're in different categories now. You've categorised them by different headings. There's a group on curriculum planning, research in medical education, educational management, assessment, teaching and learning, and theories in medical education. I just thought that the last few publications had been more weighted towards research in medical education particularly. Does that represent a change of emphasis from AMEE, would you say?
I think it probably does. I think people are looking more not so much at the practical side, but it's also why we're doing it, why that should become practice. So we're trying to build in theory as well as research. Yeah.
So this is attracting interested parties within AMEE from both ends of the teaching spectrum.
I think
really,
the important thing about the AMEE Guides is we're attracting people who perhaps are not traditional perceived as a medical educator. So the psychometricians, the educational psychologists, the basic scientists are all coming more into this involvement, and I think that's a good thing as well.
That leads me on, Trevor, to ask you about your other sphere of activity for the AMEE Exec particularly, and that's in the AMEE Guides, the best evidence medical education. There's a great saying, isn't there, that if you just say something, it's just an anecdote, but if you can write it down and prove it, then it becomes much more authoritative. Yeah. Is that the sort of theory behind the AMEE
I think
program?
It is, but we have to recognise that we've got a lot of primary research, people doing a lot of papers, medical teachers inundated every week with lots of primary research papers. But what people are not doing, what's called secondary research, which is putting all these papers together and saying, as a result of these papers, what are our recommendations? And AMEE is about collecting all of those papers in what's called a systematic review. So we've just had a recent publication of what is the evidence for community-based education. This is one which is written by Rachel Ellaway, and it takes all the papers related to community-based education, summarises them in a systematic way and says, well, at the end of the day, is it really worthwhile? Is what we're saying about community-based education true or not? And it's this secondary research, and it's been very effective again, important.
So an important resource for, again, anyone wanting to find out what is currently the correct answer, rather than just their own personal opinion.
Absolutely, yeah.
That leads me on to the second question, that was the BICS. I'm not quite sure that everyone will know what the BICS means.
We wanted to encourage the AMEE membership at large to be involved with this. So what we did is we put together a group of people from different parts of the world and called them AMEE, Best Evidence Medical Education International Collaborating Centres. And so far we've got 22 from around the world. And what these organisations do, they either conduct a review themselves or they act as reviewers for somebody else's review. So they have double function. So they some of them are writing their own secondary research review, or some of them are just acting as as reviewers. That's a large group of people. To actually get them organised, we have the AMEE Review Editorial Committee, which is the BREC, and that's a smaller group of people, 9 people from around the world again, who have a lot of experience in reviewing, who are acting as a control mechanism, making sure what's coming through is printable, is appropriate, it can be institutionalized.
This sounds like this is a pretty unique activity which AMEE is involved with, to be overseeing studies and reviews of this nature.
At the moment, I can't see anybody else doing that. So yeah, you're probably right.
Well,
I think what we want to do soon now is to get into the situation where we have a lot of experience. We've got so much experience that people now come to AMEE and BME and ask specifically for those reviews, like commissioning the reviews. And that would be a really important step if we could make that.
A good explanation of everything that you're doing and of something which AMEE is offering. Thanks very much for that, Trevor.
My pleasure.